Welcome to this rapid revision video on Paper 1, the thematic study. We're going to be looking at question 3. This is the question that asks why two things are similar or different. It's worth 4 marks, and we'll look at how the question is structured a little bit more in a moment. Firstly, some words on how the Pearson Edexcel Paper 1 exam is structured. It has two main components. The first we call a thematic study. For example, medicine in Britain circa 1250 to the present. The other component is the historic environment or source inquiry. For example, the British sector of the Western Front 1914 to 18, injuries, treatment and trenches. That's the historic environment study that goes with the medicine in Britain one. You might do one of the other topics. The total time for the paper is 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it would include a separate sources booklet for the historic environment. You'll have 1 hour and 15 minutes for both sections. We're going to have a look at question 3 in this video. The first question in section B is question 3, which we'll be studying today. However, note that these instructions say that you have to answer question 3, you have to answer the 12-mark question 4, and then you'll get a choice out of two 16-mark answers. I'll cover those in separate videos. The question itself is worth 4 marks. It shouldn't take you too long to do, and you won't need to write too much, therefore. Let's have a look at the requirements of the question. The question is assessing AO1, knowledge of key features and characteristics of the period, and AO2, analysis of second-order concepts, similarity and difference in this case. As you can see in the mark scheme here, there are 2 marks for AO2, your analysis, and 2 marks for AO1. You really don't have to write too much. All you'll need to do is include 2 valid features from each of the specified periods, and here we can see the specified periods. Care in hospitals is the issue, and the periods are 1250 to 1500. And 1700 to 1900. So you'll need to make sure that your examples that you've selected have come from those date ranges. You'll also need to support each feature with additional detail or explanation showing why they are different or similar depending on the question. Here we can see though that the question is asking us why these things are different. At most you'll spend about 6 minutes on this question unless you're entitled to extra time, but many of you will probably get it done a lot quicker than that. If you want to have a go at the question first, you can pause the video here and give it a try. If not, let's have a look at my sample answer. In the exam paper, you'll have plenty of space to write your answer. I've decided to colour code mine with AO1 knowledge in blue and AO2 analysis in red. In the years 1250 to 1500, hospitals in Britain were usually run by the church, with monks and nuns providing the medical care. However, by the years 1700 to 1900, hospitals were different, with doctors and nurses providing more professional medical care. That's the first part of my answer. Notice that I have kept my examples strictly to those date ranges specified in the question. Now I need to explain. This was different because the care in hospitals in the period 1250 to 1500 was largely untrained, whereas the care in hospitals 1700 to 1900 relied on more trained and professional staff, particularly after the adoption of Florence Nightingale's nursing methods. There are other examples you could have gone with here, for example looking at the treatments that are available and how that broadened, the nature of surgery for example being included in hospitals by 1900 and several other things. But let's see how I've picked up my marks with this example. So I'd get some marks for AO1 for my valid example for 1250 to 1500 and the same for my valid example from 1700 to 1900. I've got some relevant analysis of difference, which is what's been specified in the question, looking at the professionalism and training of the staff, which is further supported by some specific information about Florence Nightingale. So it should be 4 out of 4. Next we'll have a look at an answer which I perhaps haven't done so well. With this second answer, I want you to try and spot what mistake I've made. In the years 1250 to 1500, hospitals in Britain used herbal remedies and cared for patients with minor illnesses. By the years 1700 to 1900, hospitals also used natural remedies. This shows that both medieval hospitals and hospitals in the period 1700 to 1900 used the best medical knowledge and understanding available to them, despite advances in knowledge and treatment. So I might, if the examiner was in a good mood, get a mark for this first point here, which is a valid example after all. But that's going to be about it. Have you spotted the mistake? The question is asking me to look for differences, and instead I've given similarities, and therefore that wouldn't be credited. The most I could expect from this is 1 out of 4, but I might not even get that because ultimately, have I explained how they're different? I don't think I have. Let's have a look at another wrong way of doing it. See if you can spot the mistake here. In the years 1250 to 1500, hospitals worked on a voluntary or charity basis. People would pay for treatment where they could, or they would rely on charitable or religious donations. However, after 1900, hospitals were increasingly paid for through taxes such as national insurance. This shows that while people could get hospital care in both eras, care became more affordable and accessible in modern times, particularly after the establishment of the NHS. So have you spotted the mistake here? Well, last time I looked for a similarity, the question is looking for a difference. Here I've clearly identified a difference. This is a valid example. I might get a mark for it or I might not. However, the date range says 1700 to 1900, and here I've said it's after 1900, and that would not get any credit. And so my supporting explanation can't get any credit either. The most I can expect to get from that answer is 1 out of 4. So the two big mistakes that you can make are specifying examples from outside the specified date range, and the other one is referring to similarities when it's asking for differences, or the other way around. So make sure that you don't make those mistakes. I'm going to give you the opportunity to try some questions of your own. There haven't been many exam papers, so I've come up with these myself, but I think they are pretty similar to what you'll find in the exam. So for medicine through time, these questions relate to differences. Explain one way in which understanding of the cause of disease in the period 1500 to 1700 was different to the understanding of the cause of disease in 1800 to 1900. Explain one way in which the prevention of disease in the period 1600 to 1700 was different from the prevention of disease from 1900 to the present. Or let's have a look at some questions relating to similarities. Explain one way in which the treatment of the Black Death, 1348, was similar to the treatment of the Great Plague, 1665. Or explain one way in which understanding of the human anatomy in the period 1250 to 1400 was different to the understanding of human anatomy 1600 to 1800. Now pay close attention to the date ranges in that final question. It might be obvious to refer to Vesalius for the change. However, the date range specified is 1600 to 1800, which is too late for Vesalius, so you'd have to stick to someone like Harvey. If you want to pause the video here and have a go at some of those questions, go ahead. Or if you're studying other topics, I've got a couple of suggestions for you too. If you're one of my pupils, you won't need to worry about these because we are doing medicine through time. However, if you're watching this and you're doing a different topic, perhaps you could try one of the warfare through time questions. Explain one way in which the role of the mounted knight in medieval warfare was similar to the role of the tank in modern warfare. Explain one way in which the impact of warfare on civilians during the period 1250 to 1500 was similar to the impact of warfare on civilians during the period 1900 to present. Or perhaps you're doing crime and punishment through time. Explain one way that the treatment of the toll-pile martyrs was similar to the way that conscientious objectors during the First World War were treated. Or explain one way in which the nature of punishment during the years 1500 to 1700 was different from the nature of punishment in the period 1900 to present. Pause the video here if you want to have a go at some of those answers. Some final points. The 4-mark different or similar questions require you to show a knowledge of continuity or change. You must pay attention to the specified date ranges and select your examples from those ranges. And you must explain how your examples show change, where they're different, or continuity, where they're similar, across the period specified. So read the question carefully. That concludes this rapid revision video. I hope it's been useful to you, and if it has, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. If you've got a topic that you're desperate for me to cover in rapid revision, pop it in the comments below. You never know, I might be able to do it. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.